Griffin Keys wakes up early in the morning, the same way he does almost every day. His apartment is small but neat, filled with little reminders of the life he wants but can't quite reach. He works as a zookeeper at the Franklin Park Zoo, a job he loves even though it doesn't bring him much money or status. For him, caring for the animals is enough. They give him a sense of comfort, purpose, and belonging that he doesn't always find with people. He gets ready for work, puts on his familiar uniform and heads out the door with the kind of tired optimism that has become common for him. The zoo is lively at sunrise. Birds call out from the trees, monkeys chatter, and the lions stretch lazily in the morning light. Griffin walks past each enclosure with a routine that comes from years of practice. He talks to the animals as if they're co-workers. He isn't joking when he speaks to them, even though he knows they can't answer. At least, he thinks they can't. To him, they're family more than exhibits. He feeds the giraffes, checks the zebras, jokes with the playful bears and stops to give Joe the gorilla an apple. Joe has always been different. There's something deeper in his eyes, something almost human. Griffin feels that Joe understands him better than most people. Years earlier, Griffin had proposed to his girlfriend Stephanie at the beach. He planned the whole moment carefully, rehearsing what he'd say. He imagined a perfect answer from a woman he believed he would spend his life with. Instead, Stephanie rejected him. She told him she wanted someone with more ambition than a zookeeper. Griffin never forgot those words. They stayed with him every day, forming a quiet wound he kept hidden behind his smile. That moment pushed him to focus more on the zoo and the animals who never judged him. Today is different because Stephanie is back in town. Griffin hears the news from his brother, Dave, who runs a luxury car dealership and constantly pushes Griffin to work with him in. Griffin woke up the next morning feeling the tug of yesterday's confusion still hanging on him. He had spent half the night thinking about what the lion, monkey, and bear had told him. Even when he finally convinced himself it was a dream, their voices echoed in his head. At one point he sat up in bed, laughed nervously, and then fell back again, trying to force his mind into silence. But something within him kept replaying the moment the animals spoke. It felt too real to ignore. The next day, when he walked into the zoo, the memory returned with full force. He paused for a moment outside the main service gate, holding the keys in his hand, staring at the map of the zoo printed on the sign. Every animal habitat felt different now. Every enclosure looked like it was hiding a world he had never seen. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. The morning was calm. A few early visitors walked around with paper cups of coffee, and children ran ahead of their parents to look at the penguins. Griffin nodded at the staff members he crossed paths with but didn't say much. His mind was too full. When he passed the lion exhibit, he avoided eye contact, as if the lions could somehow stare back into his memory. But as he walked past the stone wall, he heard a low voice behind him say, "You're late today." Griffin froze. His eyes widened. He knew that voice. He slowly turned. Joe the lion was sitting on the rock, staring at him with calm authority. No one else seemed to notice. A family standing a few feet away was looking in the opposite direction, busy taking pictures of another animal. Griffin swallowed hard. So it wasn't a dream, he whispered. Joe chuckled. Dreams don't smell this bad. Trust me, I'm a lion. Griffin couldn't help but let out a nervous laugh. This can't be happening. I'm hearing you again. You're actually talking. We've always been talking, Joe said. You just never listened. Before Griffin could respond, a small acorn hit him on the shoulder. Griffin woke up the next day with a strange mix of nerves and excitement. The animal's coaching had already changed the way he carried himself, and he could feel it. Even when he was brushing his teeth or making his morning coffee, he caught himself standing taller and breathing more steadily. It felt like his body was waking up in a new way, like he was becoming someone he should have been all along. But he also knew he wasn't done learning. Not even close. When he arrived at the zoo, morning sunlight spilled over the entrance, and a group of school children waited impatiently for the gates to open. Griffin stepped inside, greeting the staff and waving at a few regular visitors who recognized him. As he walked past the enclosures, he felt pairs of eyes following him. The animals were alert. Watching. Ready to help if needed. It almost made him laugh. He headed toward the gorilla habitat to check on Bernie. The big gorilla sat by the artificial waterfall, gently tapping a stick on a rock as if thinking deeply about something. When he noticed Griffin approaching, he smiled and pressed his chest lightly with a hand, greeting him. "Good morning, Bernie," Griffin said. Bernie leaned forward. "I heard about the event yesterday. The lions told me you didn't panic." Griffin chuckled. "It went better than I thought." "That's what happens when you stop doubting yourself," Bernie said. "Confidence isn't pretending. It's remembering that you matter." Griffin nodded. Bernie's words always hit him in a quieter, deeper way than the others. The gorilla had a gentle wisdom that came from years of watching humans come and go. Griffin sat down beside the railing. Stephanie seemed interested again. "But I still don't know what I want." Bernie tilted his head. "You think you want her. But do you want someone who didn't want you as you already are?" The question stayed in Griffin's mind even as he stood up again to continue his morning work. He mulled over it while cleaning The next week at the zoo began with an unusual buzz of activity. A big corporate event was scheduled for the weekend, and Griffin had been assigned to help coordinate several exhibits, which meant he was running between enclosures, staff rooms and visitor areas more than usual. Even with all the stress, he felt more grounded than ever. The animals could see it too. Every time he passed an enclosure, one of them would give him a look of approval or a subtle nod. It wasn't just the confidence in his walk. It was the way he handled problems without panicking and talked to staff without second-guessing himself. The animals didn't whisper constant instructions anymore. They didn't need to. Griffin had grown into the man they were trying to help him become. But there was one thing left. Something he had been avoiding. Bernie. The gorilla hadn't been himself lately. Griffin saw him sitting alone often, staring at the trees with a distant expression. Even Donald, who always had jokes ready, was quieter whenever Bernie was around. Late one afternoon, Griffin approached Bernie's enclosure with a bucket of fruit. Bernie didn't come to greet him like usual. That worried Griffin. He stepped closer to the railing. "Bernie? Everything all right?" Bernie turned slowly. His eyes looked heavy, burdened by something he couldn't shake off. "I'm fine," he said, though it didn't sound true. Griffin set the bucket down. "You miss her. Your mate." Bernie looked away. "She's gone. There's nothing more to say." Griffin sat on the bench outside the enclosure. He stayed quiet for a moment, letting Bernie take his time. Then he spoke. "You know, you helped me more than anyone here. I think you deserve something too. Something better than sitting alone, wishing your life were different." Bernie didn't answer. But he listened. That same evening, when the zoo closed and the last visitor left, Griffin walked through the quiet pathways until he reached the nocturnal house. He entered the tea.